Welcome to this deep dive. And we're going to be looking at dementia caregiving. And you've shared some really insightful resources, especially for people living in the UK.
It's great that you're diving into this.
Yeah.
And as you kind of explore all of this information, just remember that while the details about, benefits and support systems might be very UK specific, the core challenges of caregiving
Yeah.
and the real need for self-care, they're pretty universal.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we can all take away from this deep dive is that no matter where we are in the world, there are things that we can do to help us through this process.
Absolutely.
So we're going to equip you with an understanding of the support available, practical strategies to manage the emotional ups and downs, and most importantly, how to prioritize your own well-being.
Yeah, and I think, that begins with recognizing yourself as a carer,
Okay.
because you might see yourself as a partner or a child or a friend, but, embracing that carer identity can really open up access to a lot of support.
So let's unpack what that support looks like, because there's a lot in here. Your sources mentioned, help from family and friends, support groups, your GP and healthcare professionals, local authority services, and even talking therapies.
And don't forget things like support that you can get from your employer.
Yeah.
And in the UK specifically, there's financial support available through Carers Allowance. And you can find that claim form and the details on eligibility at www.gov.uk carers-allowance.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah.
So now that we know where we can go to get support,
Hmm?
let's kind of unpack what dementia caregiving entails, because I think your sources do a fantastic job of painting a really realistic picture of this.
Yes. And one of the things that they really emphasize is that dementia, it's not just about memory loss.
Yeah.
It affects thinking, behavior, and it fundamentally changes your relationship with the person that you care for. And it's also a progressive journey, meaning the demands on you as a carer will change over time.
Yeah. And one of the carer stories that really kind of resonated with me was a woman was talking about her 85-year-old husband who has dementia, and he gets fully dressed in the middle of the night
Oh, wow.
and insists he has to go to work. And, obviously the impact on her sleep and well-being is huge.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it just shows how unpredictable and challenging it can be.
It does. And, and it's not a criticism to acknowledge that.
Right.
And that brings us to the emotional roller coaster that your sources highlight.
Okay.
All these different feelings of guilt, frustration, anger, resentment, even grief are all normal.
And I think it's so important to hear that. And one of the quotes that really struck me was, guilt, anger, and frustration are common emotions felt by carers. And it's very important not to be ashamed about how you feel.
Yeah.
Shame stops us from being honest and asking for help when we need it.
Powerful.
Yeah. And so I think, it's so important to hear that you're not alone in feeling that way.
Absolutely. And being kind to yourself is not a luxury. It's absolutely essential. And this kindness actually weaves through all of the practical strategies that your sources offer for managing dementia caregiving.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of practical strategies, one that really stood out to me was keeping a journal.
Okay.
And not just to vent, but to really actively record positive moments.
Yeah.
Imagine ending each day by writing down one thing that you did well as a carer.
Yeah.
And one thing you're grateful for can really change your whole perspective.
That's a great idea. It's almost like building a resilience bank to draw on when things get tough. And what about, those times when the person you're caring for is having a particularly difficult time?
Yeah.
Your sources mention making adaptations to the home environment.
Yeah. Creating a really supportive and safe space can make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Think about simple things like installing grab bars in the bathroom or using visual cues like labels on cupboards or even just decluttering to kind of reduce confusion. And, these small changes could have a really big impact on both of your well-being. And I think that makes sense, especially, as dementia progresses and those day-to-day tasks become more challenging. Your sources also talk about the potential of assistive technology.
Yeah.
And beyond those GPS trackers we discussed earlier, what other, gadgets and gizmos are out there?
Oh, there's a whole world of assistive tech that's designed specifically for dementia care.
Oh.
Things like smart medication dispensers that remind the person to take their pills and prevent, accidental overdosing.
Oh, okay.
Or voice-activated assistants that can play music or set reminders and even connect with loved ones through video calls.
I never even thought about that. So technology can really play a crucial role in providing support and, even a sense of independence
Absolutely.
for the person with dementia. But
Right.
I imagine it's also important to use these tools carefully.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We talked about consent and privacy with the GPS trackers,
Yeah.
and that applies to all assistive technology. It's really important to involve the person in these decisions as much as possible. Respect their dignity and autonomy, and technology should really enhance care, not replace human connection.
That's such a crucial point. And speaking of human connection,
Mhm.
your sources emphasize the importance of tapping into support networks. And it's not just about practical help, but also about emotional support and combating that sense of isolation that many carers feel.
Right. And, those networks can come in many forms,
Oh,
family and friends, of course, but also support groups, online forums,
yeah.
and, even connecting with other carers through organizations like Carers UK or the Alzheimer Society, sharing experiences and knowing that you're not alone can be so validating.
It's like finding your tribe, people who truly understand the challenges and the triumphs of this journey. And speaking of triumphs, one of the sources mentioned a technique called positive reminiscence.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
It's a really lovely way to connect with the person that you're caring for and tap into some positive memories. You could look through old photos together or listen to their favorite music or even just talk about happy times from their past.
Yeah.
It can spark joy, reduce agitation, and really strengthen your bond.
I love that it's a reminder that even amidst the challenges of dementia,
Yeah.
those moments of connection and shared joy are still possible.
Exactly. And, focusing on those positives is so important for your own well-being as a carer. And it brings us back to that, key theme of self-care. Your sources are really adamant that taking breaks isn't selfish.
Yeah.
It's essential.
It's like the oxygen mask analogy, right? You
Yeah.
have to take care of yourself first before you can effectively care for others. And your sources offer some great practical tips for making self-care reality.
Right. One that really resonated with me was learning to say no, because carers often feel obligated to do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
But setting boundaries with the person that you care for and with other demands on your time is so important for preventing burnout.
It's about recognizing your limits and advocating for your own needs.
It is.
But what if you're struggling with feelings of guilt or you feel like you're letting people down by saying no?
I think that's totally understandable. But remember, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So by taking care of yourself, you're actually ensuring that you can provide better care in the long run. And, it might be helpful to kind of reframe those no's as not right now, or let me find someone who can help with that.
That's a great reframing technique. And
Yeah.
speaking of help, your sources talk a lot about the range of support services that are available.
Yeah, and this is where things get a bit more specific to the UK.
Okay.
Your local authority is a really key point of contact.
Mhm.
They offer things like home care visits or day centers where the person can socialize and participate in activities,
Yeah.
and even respite care to give you a much-needed break.
It sounds like a really comprehensive system.
It is.
And in the UK, you mentioned a carer's assessment, right?
Yes.
What exactly does that involve?
It's a fantastic resource, basically. It's an assessment that's conducted by a social worker
Okay.
to evaluate your needs as a carer
Okay.
and determine what support you might be eligible for.
So they take into account your personal situation,
Yeah.
the level of care you're providing, and the impact it's having on you.
Exactly. And they look at things like your physical and mental health,
Yeah.
your ability to work or manage other responsibilities, and any specific challenges that you're facing. It's a great opportunity to be open and honest about your needs,
Yeah.
even if it feels uncomfortable.
It sounds like it can be a game changer in terms of accessing the right support and recognizing that you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
But what about those times when the demands of caregiving just feel overwhelming?
Yeah.
Even with support in place, your sources talk about respite care as a lifeline for carers.
It really can be. Respite care provides a temporary break for carers.
Okay.
And it ranges from a few hours to days or even weeks. And it can give you the chance to recharge, attend to your own needs, and return to your caring role feeling refreshed and more capable.
It makes so much sense. Even a short break can make a world of difference. But I imagine it can be hard to let go, even temporarily.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
What advice do your sources offer for making that transition easier?
One key suggestion is to plan ahead. Talk to your local authority about respite care options. Discuss it with the person you care for if possible.
Okay.
And involve family or friends in the process. The more prepared you are, the less stressful it will feel.
That's a great point. And speaking of planning ahead, there's a sensitive topic that your sources address, recognizing that dementia is a progressive illness. And at some point, the level of care needed might exceed what you can provide at home.
It's a difficult reality to face.
It is.
But acknowledging it allows you to plan for the future and consider options like care homes.
Yeah.
And your sources emphasize that this decision isn't a failure.
Right.
It's about ensuring that the person receives the best possible care as their needs evolve.
That's a really important message. And your sources offer some great resources from the Alzheimer's Society specifically to help with these tough decisions.
Yeah.
They have guides on care homes and other options, choosing a care home for a person with dementia, and even supporting a person with dementia in a care home.
And those guides provide really practical advice and emotional support, which can be so valuable during this challenging transition. And remember, even if the person moves into a care home, your role doesn't end. You can still visit, stay involved in their care, and advocate for their needs.
It's a reminder that the love and commitment remain constant, even as the caregiving dynamic changes. And that brings us to another sensitive topic. What happens when the caring role comes to an end?
It's a natural part of the journey.
Yeah.
But it can be incredibly difficult for carers. There's grief for the person who has died, coupled with the adjustment to life without the caregiving responsibilities that have often become such a central part of their identity.
And your sources mention that it's common for carers to experience a mix of emotions, sadness, relief, guilt, even a sense of emptiness.
That's right. And it's really important to allow yourself to feel those emotions, to process the experience, and to seek support if needed. There are bereavement services available, support groups specifically for carers who have lost someone they cared for, and even therapy to help navigate the emotional landscape of grief.
It's a reminder that the journey of caregiving doesn't end with the person's death. There's still a process of healing and adjustment for the carer, and that process deserves just as much attention and care as the active caregiving phase.
Absolutely. And, it circles back to that theme of kindness. The same kindness that you've shown the person you cared for needs to be extended to yourself during this time of transition and grief.
Yeah, it really does feel like it's coming full circle because, throughout this deep dive from recognizing yourself as a carer to navigating the emotional and practical challenges, self-kindness has really been the constant thread.
It is the foundation upon which everything else rests.
Yeah.
And your sources offer some great reminders of how to kind of weave that self-kindness into your daily life as a carer.
So we talked earlier about the power of keeping a journal to record those positive moments. What other, simple but impactful self-care practices do your sources recommend?
Well, one that comes up a lot is the importance of setting aside even a few minutes each day for something you truly enjoy.
Okay.
Whether that's reading a book, listening to music, taking a walk in nature, or anything that nourishes your soul. It's not about adding another task to your to-do list. It's about carving out space for yourself to recharge.
That makes a lot of sense. Even those small moments of joy can make a big difference. And speaking of small moments, one of the sources mentioned the idea of micro breaks throughout the day.
Oh, yeah. Those micro breaks are great. They're not about taking a full vacation. They're about, finding those tiny pockets of time to step away from the demands of caregiving and just breathe. It could be as simple as closing your eyes for a few deep breaths or stepping outside for a moment of fresh air or listening to a calming song.
It's almost like hitting the reset button throughout the day.
Yeah.
And those little resets can really add up to make you feel more grounded and centered. Another theme that runs throughout your sources is the power of asking for help.
It's so important, and yet so many carers struggle with it. They feel like they need to do it all, be strong for everyone, and not burden others. But the truth is, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Yeah, it takes courage to acknowledge your limits and reach out for support. But how do you actually do that? Your sources mentioned that sometimes even knowing where to start can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, they do. And they offer some really practical advice. Start by identifying specific tasks that you need help with. Maybe it's grocery shopping, meal prep transportation, or even just someone to sit with the person you care for while you take a break.
Okay.
Then think about your network, family, friends, neighbors, colleagues who might be able to provide that specific type of support.
So it's about breaking it down into manageable chunks and matching the help needed with the people in your network who might be best suited to provide it.
Exactly. And remember, even small acts of assistance can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate the power of asking for help, even with things that seem insignificant.
And if your personal network is limited or you need more specialized support, that's where those organizations we discussed earlier come in.
That's right. Carers UK, the Alzheimer Society Age UK, and many others offer a lot of resources and information and practical assistance.
Yeah, they can connect you with support groups, provide advice on navigating the benefit system, even offer training programs to equip you with the skills you need to manage the challenges of caregiving.
Right.
So it's recognizing that you're part of a larger community and there are people out there who understand what you're going through and want to help.
And connecting with that community can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Sharing experiences, learning from others, and knowing you're not alone can make all the difference.
We've covered so much in this deep dive, from understanding the realities of dementia and navigating the emotional roller coaster to exploring practical strategies and tapping into support networks. It's been a truly comprehensive journey.
It really has. And as we wrap up, I just want to leave our listener with a final thought.
Okay.
You are the heart of this caregiving journey. Your compassion, your dedication, your unwavering presence, that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah, beautifully said. And as you continue on this path, remember to nurture yourself with the same kindness and care that you so generously give to others.
You deserve to thrive, not just survive.
Yeah.
And by prioritizing your own well-being, you're going to be much better equipped to navigate those challenges and embrace the moments of joy along the way.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into dementia caregiving. We hope it's provided you with valuable insights, practical tools, and most importantly, a sense of hope and empowerment as you continue on this journey.